The soft beeping of the radar echoed through the bridge of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. Captain Ju Park rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the flashing red dot on her screen. After 3 months of deep space exploration, this was the first unusual signal they had encountered. "Captain, the signal appears to be a distress call," reported Officer Yuna at the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel. "But it's unlike anything in our database." Ju stood up from her chair and walked to the front viewport. The vast emptiness of space stretched before them, dotted with distant stars. "How far?" "About 6 hours at maximum speed, Captain." Ju didn't hesitate. In the 5 years since humanity had joined the galactic community, they had learned that distress calls were taken very seriously. "Set course. Alert medical and first contact teams to be ready." The Horizon turned smoothly in space, its engines humming to life as it headed toward the mysterious signal. Ju spent the next few hours reviewing first contact protocols and preparing her crew. Something about this signal felt different. When they arrived, the sight before them made the entire bridge crew fall silent. A massive ship, at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, drifted in space. But it wasn't like any ship they had seen before. The vessel appeared to be made entirely of crystal, with geometric patterns that caught and reflected starlight in rainbow patterns. "Life signs?" Ju asked, breaking the silence. "Yes, Captain. Hundreds of them. But..." The sensor officer paused. "They're very different from any known species." "Open a channel, standard greeting protocol." The main screen flickered to life, and Ju felt her breath catch. The being on the screen was breathtaking. It appeared to be made of the same crystalline material as the ship, semi-transparent and glowing with an inner light that shifted between soft blues and purples. "This is Captain Ju Park of the Earth exploration vessel Horizon. We received your distress call. How can we help?" The crystalline being's light pulsed as it spoke, its voice coming through the translator with an odd musical quality. "Captain, I am Guardian Lumina of the Nari vessel Crystal Haven. We need help." Over the next hour, Ju learned the Nari story. They were a peaceful species whose homeworld was dying due to its star's deterioration. They had spent the last 50 years searching for a new home, but every advanced civilization they encountered had turned them away. "Our biology requires specific environmental conditions," Lumina explained, her light dimming with sadness. "The other species we've met called our needs too demanding, too resource-intensive. They said helping us would damage their economies." Ju felt anger rising in her chest. "How many of you are there?" "On this ship, we have 2,000 souls. 5 other ships carry the rest of our people. In total, we'd number about 15,000. Ju thought about Earth's history, about refugees and displaced people, about communities coming together to help those in need. She thought about how humanity had nearly destroyed their own planet before learning to heal it. "Guardian Lumina, I can't make promises for all of humanity, but I give you my word that I will bring your case to our council. We have experience with environmental challenges and restoration. Perhaps we can help where others wouldn't." The crystalline being's glow brightened considerably. "Captain Park, you are the first to offer even this much hope in many years. But I must warn you, helping us may bring diplomatic complications with other civilizations." Ju smiled. "Humanity has a long history of doing what's right, even when it's not easy. Let me contact Earth. In the meantime, we'll stay with your ship. My medical team would like to learn more about your biology and needs." As she sent the message to Earth, Ju looked out at the crystalline ship again. She knew this discovery would change everything. Humanity had been looking for their place in the galactic community, wondering what they could offer that the older, more advanced civilizations couldn't. Maybe this was it. Maybe their strength wasn't in technology or resources, but in their willingness to help those in need. The next few days would be crucial. But as Ju watched her crew working excitedly with the Nari, learning about their crystalline technology and sharing stories, she felt confident. Humanity had found its calling among the stars, not as conquerors or traders, but as helpers and protectors. Guardian Lumina's words stayed with her. In all our years of searching, no one has offered us hope. No one has even tried to understand us. That was about to change. Humanity would try, and they would do more than understand. They would help. The United Earth Council chamber was packed. Dr. Do-Hyun Kim stood at the center platform, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from his team's analysis of the Nari. His hands were steady as he adjusted his presentation, but his heart was racing. The next hour would determine the fate of an entire species. The Nari, he began, his voice clear in the large room, are unlike any species we've encountered. Their crystalline biology isn't just their appearance, it's the core of their existence. The screens around him showed detailed scans of Nari physiology. They don't eat like we do. Instead, they absorb specific wavelengths of light and process certain minerals. They need an environment rich in crystal-forming elements and precise temperature control. A council member raised her hand. Dr. Kim, we've heard that other civilizations rejected them because of these requirements. What exactly would it take to help them? Do-Hyun took a deep breath. To house all 15,000 Nari, we would need to build special biodomes. These would require about 20% of Earth's current crystal mining output for the next 5 years. The energy requirements would be significant. Murmurs filled the chamber. 20% was a lot of resources, especially for a relatively young spacefaring civilization like Earth. Ambassador Hyori Lee stood up from her seat in the front row. She was known for her direct approach to problems. Dr. Kim, what happens if we say no? What are their chances of finding another home? Based on their records, Do-Hyun said quietly, they've already approached 37 civilizations over 50 years. Their ship systems are failing. They have supplies for maybe 2 more years. After that, he didn't need to finish the sentence. The room fell silent. Ambassador Lee looked around at her fellow council members. May I speak? The council president nodded. Hyori walked to the center of the room, standing next to Do-Hyun. Her traditional blue diplomatic robe caught the light as she moved. 200 years ago, she began, Earth was dying. We had polluted our air, poisoned our waters, and destroyed many of our natural resources. We nearly made our own planet uninhabitable. But we learned. We developed technologies to clean our air, purify our water, and restore our lands. She gestured to the images of the Nari. These people need exactly what we learned to create: controlled environments and resource management. This isn't just about helping them. This is about who we are as a species. A different council member stood up. But the diplomatic consequences. Yes, Hyori cut in. Helping them might anger some of the more powerful civilizations. They might restrict trade. But I ask you, what is the point of joining the galactic community if we abandon our values to do so? Dr. Kim stepped forward again. There's something else you should know. He switched the display to show some recent test results. The Nari's crystalline technology is incredibly advanced. Their methods of energy storage and transfer could revolutionize our own systems. Working together, we could solve problems neither of us could solve alone. The council president called for order as discussions broke out across the chamber. We will now vote. Remember, this decision will show the galaxy what humanity stands for. The voting took less than 5 minutes. When the results appeared on the main screen, Do-Hyun felt tears in his eyes. 87% in favor of helping the Nari. Ambassador Lee immediately opened a communication channel to the horizon. Captain Juu's face appeared on the screen, with Guardian Lumina's glowing form beside her. Guardian Lumina, Hyori said formally, on behalf of humanity, I am pleased to inform you that Earth has voted to offer your people sanctuary. We will begin immediate construction of appropriate habitats. Until they are ready, we offer our moon as a temporary home for your people. The crystalline beings glow-brightened until it was almost blinding. In 50 years, no one has. For the first time, The translator seemed unable to convey the depth of emotion in Lumina's voice. Captain Ju was smiling. "I'll begin coordinating the first transport to the moon immediately." As the transmission ended, Hyori turned to Do-yeon. "We have a lot of work ahead of us." He nodded, already making plans in his head. "Yes, but we're not just saving them. We're showing the galaxy a different way. Maybe some of those 37 civilizations will see what we do and think differently next time." Outside the council chamber, the news was already spreading across Earth. Humanity had made its choice. They would not turn away those in need, no matter the cost. The real work was just beginning, but for the first time in 50 years, the Nari had hope. And humanity had found its purpose among the stars. Project Director Minho Kang stood on the surface of Mars, his environment suit's visor reflecting the red landscape before him. 6 months had passed since Earth's decision to help the Nari, and the first biodome was nearly complete. Its crystal walls rose high into the Martian sky, catching the sunlight and breaking it into rainbow patterns across the dusty ground. "How are the temperature controls holding up?" he asked into his radio, walking around the massive structure. "Perfect." Engineer Yuna Shin's voice crackled back. "The Nari's crystal technology makes our old environmental systems look like child's toys. These domes practically power themselves." Minho smiled. When they had started this project, many thought it would take years to build even one suitable habitat. But they hadn't counted on the remarkable partnership that would develop between human engineers and Nari crystal shapers. Back on the moon, the temporary Nari settlement was buzzing with activity. Dr. Do-yeon Kim worked alongside Guardian Lumina in the main research facility, studying how their crystalline biology adapted to Earth's moon. The results had surprised everyone. "Watch this," Lumina said, placing one of her crystal hands on a contaminated soil sample from Earth. Her inner light pulsed softly, and within minutes, the soil began to change. The heavy metals and pollutants were being absorbed and transformed by her crystalline structure. "Incredible," Do-yeon muttered, checking his readings. "Your people don't just need specific environments. You can actively improve them." Lumina's glow brightened with pleasure. "Yes. On our homeworld, we lived in harmony with our environment, helping maintain its balance. We could do the same here, once we're properly settled." The news of this discovery spread quickly. What many had seen as a burden, the resources needed to help the Nari, was becoming an investment in Earth's future. The Nari could help clean up pollution, improve soil quality, and even assist in converting Mars' atmosphere to something more habitable. Meanwhile, on Mars, the work continued. Minho coordinated teams around the clock, with humans and Nari working side by side. The Nari taught humans how to grow and shape crystal structures, while humans showed the Nari how to adapt their techniques to Mars' unique conditions. Director Kang, a young engineer, called out, "We're ready to activate the second dome's light processing system." Minho hurried over to watch. This was the heart of each biodome, a complex crystal network that would capture and process sunlight into the specific wavelengths the Nari needed to thrive. As they activated the system, the entire dome came alive with soft, shifting colors. "It's beautiful," Yuna whispered over the radio. "And look at the energy readings. It's operating at 95% efficiency. That's better than we hoped." The first group of Nari families would arrive next week. Minho felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders, but also pride. Humanity hadn't just offered shelter, they had worked to create true homes for these people. On Earth, Ambassador Hyori Lee was holding a press conference. "The Mars biodomes are ahead of schedule," she announced to the world. "Thanks to the combination of human determination and Nari technology, we expect to have housing for all 15,000 refugees completed within 8 months. A reporter raised his hand. "What about the costs? Some say this project is draining Earth's resources." Hyori smiled. "Actually, we're already seeing returns on our investment. The crystal technology we've learned from the Nari has improved our solar power efficiency by 300%. Their environmental purification techniques are being tested in some of Earth's most polluted areas, with remarkable results. Back on Mars, Minho was ending another long day. As he waited in the airlock, he looked through the crystal walls at the Martian sunset. A group of Nari crystal shapers were working nearby, their bodies glowing softly as they fine-tuned the dome structure. One of them, a young Nari named Star Song, approached him. "Director Kang, thank you. When we first arrived in your system, we had lost hope. But look what we have built together." Minho nodded, feeling tired but satisfied. "This is just the beginning. Once all your people are safely housed, we can start working on larger projects, maybe even terraform Mars itself." As he headed back to the base, Minho thought about how far they'd come. Humanity had taken a risk in helping the Nari, but that risk was paying off in ways no one had expected. Together, they weren't just building homes. They were building a future that neither species could have achieved alone. The meeting room on the Astral Confederation space station was cold. Captain Ju Park sat beside Ambassador Hyori Lee, facing 12 representatives from the most powerful civilizations in known space. None of them looked happy. "Earth has overstepped its bounds," said High Commissioner Axel of the Confederation. He was tall and gray-skinned, with 4 arms folded across his chest. "You are a young species. You don't understand galactic politics." Hyori kept her voice calm. "We understand helping those in need. The Nari came to us dying, after being rejected by everyone else." "They were rejected for good reasons," another representative cut in. "This one was a floating blue sphere of energy. Their needs are too demanding. Their technology is too disruptive." Ju noticed how they said disruptive. She sat up straighter. "What do you mean by disruptive?" The room went quiet. High Commissioner Axel's eyes narrowed. "That is not your concern." But Hyori had caught it too. "I think it is our concern. The Nari have shared their crystal technology with us. We've seen what it can do. Is that what you're afraid of?" "Afraid?" Axel laughed. But it sounded hollow. "We are the Astral Confederation. We control most of the trade routes in known space. What could we possibly fear from crystal-growing refugees?" "The truth," Ju said suddenly. All eyes turned to her. "We've been studying their technology. Their crystals can store and transfer energy more efficiently than anything we've seen. They could revolutionize space travel, make current fuel sources obsolete." The floating blue sphere flickered angrily. "You see, this is why they were rejected. Their technology would destroy existing trade systems. Millions would lose their jobs. Entire economies would collapse." Hyori stood up. "Or perhaps those economies could adapt, change, improve. Instead of rejecting progress, we could work together to manage the transition." "Enough." Axel slammed one of his hands on the table. "Earth has 2 choices. Either send the Nari away, or face trade sanctions from the Confederation. You have 1 month to decide." After they left the meeting room, Ju and Hyori walked quickly to their ship. Neither spoke until they were safely inside. "They let them die," Ju said quietly. "Not because helping was too hard, but because they were afraid of change." Hyori nodded, her face grim. "And now they want us to do the same." She pulled out her communicator. "We need to warn Earth and the Nari." Back on Mars, the news hit hard. Minho Kang called an emergency meeting with the Nari leaders. Guardian Luminous Glow was dim with worry as they discussed the situation. "We never wanted to cause trouble for Earth," she said. "Perhaps we should leave, find uninhabited space." "No." The word came from Dr. Do-Yeon Kim, who had just arrived from the moon base. "You aren't causing trouble. They are, by choosing greed over progress." On Earth, the council met again. The choice seemed impossible. Help the Nari and face economic hardship, or abandon them and maintain good relations with the Confederation. But then something unexpected happened. Videos from Mars began spreading across Earth's networks. They showed human and Neri children playing together in the biodomes. Neri crystal shapers teaching humans their art. Human engineers and Neri scientists working side by side to solve problems. People saw the cleaned-up rivers, the restored farmland, the new energy systems, all made possible by Neri crystal technology. And they made their voices heard. Messages flooded the council from all over Earth. We won't abandon them. Stand up to the bullies. Progress over profit. Ambassador Hyori Lee smiled as she prepared Earth's official response to the Confederation. They would not give in to threats. They would not abandon the Nari. Send this to High Commissioner Axel, she told her aide. Earth's answer is no. We will not send away the Nari. If the Confederation wishes to impose sanctions, we will adapt. But we suggest you consider another path, working together to implement new technologies in a way that benefits everyone. As she sent the message, Hyori looked out her window at the Seoul skyline. The crystal towers of the new Nari embassy caught the sunset, sending rainbow lights across the city. Whatever came next, Earth had made the right choice. On Mars, unaware of the galactic politics swirling around them, humans and Neri continued to work together, building something new. Something that proved that compassion and progress could go hand in hand, no matter what the cost. Sung-Ko Choi never imagined his job would involve teaching human children how to grow crystals alongside glowing alien children. Yet here, he was in the Mars Education Dome, watching 30 young humans and Neri working together on their Crystal Garden project. Remember, he said, walking between the workstations, the crystals respond to emotions as much as to science. That's why human-Neri teams work so well together. A young human girl named Maya raised her hand. Mr. Choi, look, our crystal is changing colors. Her Nari partner, a young one named Morning Light, glowed with pride. The crystal between them pulsed with soft pink and blue lights, responding to their shared excitement. In the 8 months since the Nari had begun settling on Mars, amazing things had happened. The integration wasn't always easy, but it was beautiful to watch. At the main research facility, Dr. Do-Yeon Kim worked with a team of Nari scientists. They had made an incredible discovery: the Nari's natural ability to purify environments through their crystalline biology could be adapted to help Earth's most polluted areas. The process is simple, Do-Yeon explained to a group of visiting Earth scientists. The Nari create special crystals that work like natural filters. We place these in polluted water or soil, and within weeks, the area begins to heal. One of the Earth scientists shook her head in wonder. All those civilizations rejected them. And look what they missed. The Nari aren't a burden. They're a blessing. The changes weren't just environmental. In the entertainment dome, human musicians played alongside Nari light singers, creating entirely new forms of art. The Nari could make their bodies pulse with light and rhythm with the music, while their crystal formations amplified and transformed the sound in beautiful ways. Engineer Yoona Shin had also made a breakthrough. Working with Nari crystal shapers, she had developed a new type of computer chip that used crystal technology instead of silicon. It was faster, more efficient, and didn't create heat like traditional chips. The possibilities are endless, she told Minho Kang during their weekly meeting. The Nari's understanding of crystal formation and energy flow is revolutionary, and they're so eager to share their knowledge. But not everything was perfect. Some humans were still afraid of the strange, glowing beings, and some Nari found it hard to adjust to living so closely with biological creatures they barely understood. That's where Sung-Ko's real work came in. As cultural exchange officer, he worked to help both species understand each other better. Humans express emotions through facial expressions and body language, he explained to a group of Nari adults. We can't change our colors like you can, so we use other ways to show how we feel. The Nari found this fascinating. They had developed a new way of glowing that mimicked human smiles and frowns, making it easier for humans to understand their emotions. In return, humans learned to read the subtle changes in Nari light patterns. Children were especially good at this, often understanding their Nari friends before adults could. One day, Samgo received a special visitor in his office. It was Guardian Lumina, the leader who had first contacted humanity. "I wanted to thank you," she said, her light gentle and warm. "When we first arrived, we feared we would always be outsiders. But your people have done more than give us shelter. You've given us a home, a future, and most importantly, friendship." Sung-ho smiled. "We're learning as much from you as you are from us. Have you seen the new crystal gardens in Seoul? They're using Nari techniques to create public spaces that clean the air while providing beautiful light shows at night." As they talked, a group of children ran past his office window, humans and Nari playing some game they had invented together. They were growing up not seeing each other as different species, but simply as friends. Later that evening, Samgo wrote in his daily report, "The real success of the Nari integration isn't in the technology we've gained or the environmental improvements. It's in the way both our species are growing and changing together. We're proving that when you choose to help others, you often end up helping yourself in ways you never expected." The sun set on Mars. It's like catching the crystal domes and creating a rainbow display across the red planet's surface. Inside, two species who had once been strangers continued to build a shared future, one crystal, one friendship, one day at a time. John went back to his hotel room. He felt tired after the long day. He wanted to rest, but he knew there was more work to do. He sat down at the small desk in the room. He opened his laptop computer. John looked at the information he had gathered so far. There were many clues, but no clear answers. He needed to put all the pieces together. First, John made a list of all the suspects. There was the hotel manager, the head of security, and several of the staff members. Each one had a possible reason for doing the crime. But which one was guilty? Next, John looked at the evidence again. The security camera videos were helpful. They showed some strange things that happened the night of the murder. John watched the videos many times. He tried to see any important details he might have missed. Then there were the witness reports. Several people said they saw or heard odd things that night, but their stories didn't all match up. John would need to question them more to get the truth. John organized all the facts and clues. Slowly, a picture started to form in his mind. He was getting closer to solving the mystery, but he still needed that one final piece of proof. Time was running out. Soon, the police would close the case, and the murderer would escape justice. John had to work fast. He decided to focus on the most likely suspects. He would look into their backgrounds more. He would search their rooms for any evidence. Tomorrow, John planned to confront each suspect. He would pressure them with tough questions. One of them would crack and reveal the truth. John was determined to find the killer. He would not give up, no matter what. This was the most important case of his career. The victim deserved justice, and John would not rest until the criminal was caught. As midnight approached, John finally closed his laptop. He climbed into bed for a few hours of sleep. Tomorrow would be a big day. The pieces of the puzzle were finally coming together in his mind. John was close to the answer at last, and nothing would stop him from finding it. This story segment is 374 words, all in basic English. It continues the mystery story, showing John working hard to solve the murder case. The writing is in third person, describing John's thoughts and actions from an outside perspective. It recaps the clues and evidence so far and sets up the excitement for a dramatic confrontation and conclusion to come in the next part. The next morning, John woke up early. He got dressed and ready for the day. There was no time to waste. He had to find the killer soon. John went to the hotel restaurant for breakfast. He sat at a table in the corner. He wanted to watch the other people in the room. Maybe the murderer would make a mistake and reveal himself. As John ate, he thought about his plan. He would talk to each suspect one by one. He had a list of questions to ask them. He would watch their reactions closely. John knew how to tell if someone was lying. After breakfast, John went to find the first suspect. It was the hotel manager, Mr. Johnson. John had always thought there was something strange about him. He seemed to be hiding something. John knocked on the manager's office door. "Come in," said a voice from inside. John entered and sat down. "How can I help you today, sir?" asked Mr. Johnson with a smile. But John saw that the smile was fake. "I have some more questions about the murder," John said. He looked straight into the manager's eyes. "And I think you know more than you're saying." Mr. Johnson's face turned pale. He started to sweat. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice was shaking. For the next hour, John asked many tough questions. He showed Mr. Johnson the evidence he had found. The manager got more and more nervous. Finally, Mr. Johnson broke down. "Okay, I did it," he cried. "I killed him. But it was an accident. I didn't mean to do it." John sat back in his chair. He had done it. He had found the murderer. Now the truth could come out. The police arrived a short time later. They arrested Mr. Johnson and took him away. Justice would be served. John felt happy and proud. He had solved the case using his skills and hard work. The victim's family would now have closure. As John packed up his things and got ready to leave, he thought about his next case. He knew there would always be more mysteries to solve. But for now, John could rest. He had done his job well. He left the hotel and stepped out into the bright sunlight, ready for a new adventure. This part is 361 words, bringing the total to 735. It maintains the basic English and third-person perspective. The segment wraps up the mystery in a straightforward way, with John confronting the suspects directly to get a confession. It provides a satisfying conclusion, while hinting at more cases ahead for the detective main character. A few weeks went by. John was back in his office in the city. He had enjoyed a short vacation after solving the big case, but now it was time to get back to work. John sat at his desk, looking through some new files. Suddenly, his phone rang. He picked it up. "Hello, John speaking," he said. "Hey, John, this is Sarah." It was the hotel manager's daughter. She had helped John with some information during the case. "Sarah, how are you?" John asked. "Is everything okay?" "Yes, I'm doing all right," Sarah replied. "I wanted to thank you again for finding the truth about my father." "Of course," John said. "I'm glad I could help bring him to justice." "I know what he did was wrong," Sarah said, "but he's still my dad. I'm going to stand by him." John understood how she felt. "I know it's not easy," he said, "but you're doing the right thing." Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "There's something else, John. Something I didn't tell you before." John sat up straight in his chair. "What is it?" he asked. "I found a note in my father's desk," Sarah said. "It was addressed to you. I think you should see it." "A note? For me?" John was surprised. "What does it say?" "I'm not sure," Sarah replied, "but it might be important. Can we meet, and I'll give it to you?" "Yes, of course," John said. "Let's meet at the coffee shop on Main Street. I can be there in an hour." John hung up the phone. His mind was racing. What could be in this mystery note? Was there more to the case than he realized? He arrived at the coffee shop right on time. Sarah was already there. She looked nervous as she handed him the envelope. John opened it carefully. Inside was a single piece of paper. He read the words with shock. "John, if you're reading this, it means I've been caught. But there's something you need to know. I wasn't working alone." John looked up at Sarah. "What does this mean?" he asked. "Your father had an accomplice." Sarah shook her head. "I don't know. But whatever it is, I'm sure you'll get to the bottom of it, John. You always do." John sat back in his chair. He would have to investigate this new lead. The case wasn't over after all. There was still more work to be done. John thanked Sarah and shook her hand. Then he got up and walked out into the city streets, ready to start a new chapter in the mystery. John sat in his car looking at the note. He read it over and over. He couldn't believe there was more to the case. Who had helped Mr. Johnson with the crime? John knew he had to find out. He started the car and drove to the police station. He needed to talk to Mr. Johnson again. When John got there, he went straight to the room where Mr. Johnson was being held. He showed the note to the officer on duty. "I need to speak with the prisoner," John said. "It's very important." The officer let John into the room. Mr. Johnson looked up in surprise. "What are you doing here?" he asked. "I already told you everything." John held up the note. "Not quite everything," he said. "You had a partner, didn't you? Someone who helped you that night." Mr. Johnson's face turned red. He looked down at the floor. "I don't know what you're talking about," he mumbled, but John could tell he was lying. "Listen," John said. "You're already going to jail. You might as well tell the truth. It will be better for you in the end." Mr. Johnson was quiet for a long time. Finally, he nodded his head. "Okay, you're right," he said. "I didn't work alone. But I can't tell you who it was. They'll kill me if I do." John leaned in closer. "I can protect you," he said, "but you have to trust me. Tell me who your partner was." Mr. Johnson took a deep breath. "It was," but before he could say more, there was a loud noise outside the room. John jumped up and ran to the door. He looked out and saw smoke filling the hallway. People were shouting and running around. "What's happening?" John yelled. An officer ran by. "There's a fire," she shouted. "We have to evacuate the building." John turned back to Mr. Johnson. But the room was empty. The prisoner was gone. John couldn't believe it. How had Mr. Johnson escaped? Did it have something to do with the fire? He ran out of the room, coughing from the smoke. He had to get out of the building. But he knew this wasn't over. Somehow, Mr. Johnson's partner had helped him get away. They were still out there somewhere, and John wouldn't rest until he found them. He burst out of the burning police station into the cool night air. Sirens wailed in the distance as fire trucks approached. John watched the chaos around him. His mind was already racing ahead. He had a new mystery to solve, and this time, the stakes were even higher.